Well now, hello there. Pull up a stool. If you've found your way here, chances are you've known a particular kind of heartache. It's the kind that comes from putting your time, your sweat, and maybe a little bit of your blood into a piece of wood. You've measured with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. You've applied your glue with the care of a surgeon. You've sanded that surface until it's smoother than a river stone, a surface that could make an angel weep with its perfection. You stand back admiring your handiwork, a solid, sturdy, beautiful thing you've brought into this world. And then you wait. A few weeks pass. Maybe a month. The seasons begin their slow, inexorable turn. You walk by your creation one morning, coffee in hand, and you see it. A fissure, a split, a crack. It's a jagged line that cuts deeper than the wood. It cuts right into your soul. You rack your brain going over every step. The joinery was tight. The finish was flawless. Everything was by the book. You might even kick a nearby sawdust pile in frustration, swearing you did everything right. And here's the thing. You probably did. You followed all the rules of construction you were ever taught. But what you might have overlooked is not a rule of woodworking, but a fundamental law of nature. You see, wood is not a static, lifeless material. It's a living, breathing thing, long after the tree is fallen. And if your projects keep cracking, it's likely because you've been fighting a battle against physics itself. Today we're going to call a truce. We're going to understand the wood, and in doing so, we're going to put an end to this cracking business once and for all. Let's talk about one of the most common culprits I see, a mistake born from the best of intentions, strength. You've made a beautiful, wide tabletop out of solid oak or walnut or some other magnificent species. Now, you need to attach it to its base, its apron, its legs. Your instinct, a good one in many other circumstances, is to make that connection as rigid and unyielding as possible. So you grab your drill, and you drive a handful of sturdy screws straight through the base and up into that glorious slab of wood. You tighten them down until they groan, creating what feels like an unbreakable bond. You've just built a prison for that tabletop. You see, wood doesn't just sit there, it moves. Specifically, it expands and contracts across its width, perpendicular to the grain. Think of it like a sponge. When the air is humid in the summer, it soaks up that moisture and swells. When the air is dry in the winter, it releases that moisture and shrinks. A wide board, say 24 inches across, can easily change in width by a quarter of an inch or more over the course of a year. It's a slow, powerful, and utterly unstoppable force. Now, consider your screws, driven tight into that tabletop. They are holding it fast. They are saying, "You shall not move." But the wood, with the quiet insistence of nature itself, says, "Oh, but I will." It begins to swell, pushing outwards against those unyielding points of steel. The pressure builds, day by day, week by week. The wood fibers are being stretched and strained to their absolute limit. It's a silent, invisible tug of war happening right there in your living room. Something has to give. And it won't be the screw. And it won't be the fundamental nature of the wood. The wood will find a way to relieve that immense internal pressure. It does this by tearing itself apart. A crack forms, a relief valve for all that pent-up stress. So, what's the answer? You don't fight the movement, you accommodate it. Instead of a simple round hole for your screw, you create a slot, an elongated hole. A simple pass with a drill bit, wiggled side to side, or a more elegant job with a router will do. This small change is a monumental act of respect. You drive your screw into the center of this slot, perhaps with a washer to help it glide, and you don't crank it down with the fury of a tempest. You tighten it just enough to be snug. Now, as the wood swells and shrinks with the seasons, the screw can slide gracefully back and forth within its little track. The top is held down securely, but it is also free to be what it is, a dynamic, moving part of the natural world. You've given it room to breathe. Now let's move on to another common scenario, a joint that looks strong on the workbench but is actually a ticking time bomb. This is the cross-grain joint. Picture this, you're building a chest and you decide to add a decorative breadboard end to your solid wood lid. Or, maybe you're framing a solid panel and you decide to glue a border all the way around it, mitering the corners for a clean look. The impulse is to glue that crosspiece on for maximum strength. You apply a generous amount of glue along the entire edge, clamp it down tight, and admire the seamless, powerful joint. You have, unfortunately, just pitted two pieces of wood against each other in a fight to the death. Remember our discussion about wood movement? It happens almost entirely across the grain. Along the length of the grain, a board is remarkably stable. It barely changes in length at all. So now you have your main panel, which wants to expand and contract from side to side, and you have your crosspiece glued firmly to its end, a piece whose grain is running perpendicular. This crosspiece does not want to get wider, it wants to stay the same length. As the seasons change and the humidity fluctuates, your main panel begins its slow dance of expansion. It tries to get wider, pushing outwards with incredible force, but that crosspiece, glued fast, is a dam holding back the river. It refuses to stretch. The glue joint, which you so carefully crafted, is now under an immense shearing stress. The wood fibers in the main panel are being crushed and distorted against this unmoving barrier. The tension is building, silently and relentlessly. The wood will not be denied its nature, it must move. When the stress becomes too great for the wood fibers or the glue line to bear, a failure is inevitable. Usually, it's the main panel that surrenders first. A crack will appear, often starting near the edge and running deep into the panel as the wood violently relieves the pressure. Or, if your glue joint is the weaker link, it might fail, and the whole crosspiece could begin to separate. Either way, the beautiful, seamless piece you built is now scarred. The solution, again, is to work with the wood, not against it. For things like breadboard ends, the traditional method is a masterpiece of design. The breadboard is attached with a tongue and groove, but it's only glued in the very center. The rest of the tongue is secured with pegs or dowels that go through elongated holes in the tongue. This anchors the breadboard, keeping the panel flat, but allows the main panel to expand and shrink, with the pegs sliding freely in their slots. You get the look and the function without the self-destructive battle. It's a partnership, not a prison. This last point is perhaps the most fundamental, and honestly, the one most easily overlooked in our hurry to get building. It has to do with the wood itself. Long before you make your first cut, you go to the lumberyard, a place of great promise and wonderful smells. You pick out some beautiful boards, straight and true. You bring them back to your workshop, a space you've carefully prepared. Fired with inspiration, you immediately get to work, milling them, cutting your joinery, and assembling your project. A week later, you have a finished table. And a few weeks after that, you have a warped, twisted, or cracked table. What happened? You didn't give the wood time to get to know its new home. The environment inside that lumberyard, its temperature, and more importantly, its humidity, is almost certainly different from the environment in your workshop. And the environment in your workshop is likely different from the final destination in your house, especially if you have heating or air conditioning. Wood is a creature of habit, and it needs time to adjust. When you bring that lumber into your shop, it begins a process called acclimation. It starts to either absorb or release moisture to reach a state of equilibrium with the surrounding air. If your shop is drier than the lumberyard, the wood will shrink as it loses moisture. If your shop is more humid, it will swell. This process doesn't happen overnight. For a standard 1-inch thick board, it can take a week, sometimes 2, for it to fully stabilize and settle into its new environment. If you build with it immediately, you are building with unstable material. You might cut a perfectly flat and square board, only to find it cupped and twisted the next morning. You might assemble a tabletop with perfectly flush joints, and then watch in dismay as the wood shrinks over the next month, opening up ugly gaps between the boards, or, if the construction restricts this movement, causing the wood to crack under the strain of its own shrinkage. You're building a moving target. The solution is the simplest, though it requires the most patience, a virtue for any woodworker. When you bring new lumber into your shop, don't just lean it against a wall. Stack it properly, on a flat surface, with small sticks called stickers placed between each board every 12 to 18 inches. This allows air to circulate freely around all surfaces of every board, ensuring they acclimate evenly. Then, you must wait. Give it a week. Give it 2 if you can spare it. Let the wood settle down, find its balance, and finish its movement before you start building. This simple act of patience is one of the most profound acts of professional woodworking. So there you have it. The secret isn't some arcane joinery trick or an expensive new tool. It is simply this: you must respect wood movement. It's a fundamental truth of the craft. Professional woodworking isn't about forcing wood to behave, bending it to your will with brute force and stubbornness. It's a dance. It's about designing with the wood's nature in mind, anticipating its seasonal shifts, and creating furniture that can breathe and live in harmony with its environment. It's a partnership, not a dictatorship. This means embracing techniques that allow for this life. It means using floating panels in your frame and panel doors. It means using figure-8 fasteners or wooden buttons to attach your tabletops, giving them freedom. It means taking the time to drill slotted screw holes where necessary. And it means having the patience to let your lumber acclimate for several days, or even weeks, in your shop before you make that first cut. These aren't compromises, they are signs of a deeper understanding and respect for your material, because the strongest dovetail joint in the world, a joint that you could hang a truck from, can still fail if it's part of a design that ignores physics. The wood itself will tear apart right next to your perfect joint if you don't give it room to move. So, let this be a new mantra in your shop. Work with the wood, not against it. If this little talk has saved you from the heartache of a future crack, do me a favor and comment "wood moves" down below. Let's spread the word. Now go forth and build things that will last for generations.